Hermione isn't black. She never will be black. Never was black. There's nothing they can do to change people's public perception of the character. J.K. Rowling herself has come out and tried to say that like she thinks Hermione was actually a black woman the entire time. Funny how all of us who have read the books have never thought that. Funny how the original illustrators didn't think that. Funny how the original actress, Emma Watson, isn't black. Kind of amazing how J.K. Rowling has spent the past, almost 20 years trying to retcon her work to make it come off as more woke than it actually is. This is absolutely one of the stupidest things going on with the Harry Potter license right now is just this attempt at trying to diversify the cast, trying to ruin this iconic brand for people to try and make it into something it isn't. Harry Potter is the whitest fucking thing imaginable. Okay, there's just no getting around it. This is like a British series, that appeals to people all over the world because of its cultural identity. Trying to subvert that with diversity, by making that pretending Dumbledore is gay, which isn't true, by pretending Snape is black, which isn't true, by pretending Hermione is black. It's just resulted in just people kind of turning their backs on what Joe's claims about this, because this isn't her creative general, this isn't her creation. This isn't something that she came up with organically as part of the creative process. This is her trying to push a political agenda. And I know we all love the meme about J.K. Rowling, dad going after troons and stuff like that. How base she is in that regard, but we can't really forget that she's woke on 99% of issues. Feminism is retarded, lesbians don't exist, and Hermione isn't fucking black. This is pretty self-evident to anyone who's even remotely familiar with the brand. And yet Rowling has, for over a decade, I would think, has been trying to push this narrative that this is totally a thing that could be true. That someone like Hermione could have existed in the 90s UK, and that's just not true at all. And fans absolutely do have a right to push back against this. This is, I think, one of the most appalling things about the HBO series that we know of so far is just the blatant race swapping and trying to bait people into getting angry about it. It's trying to normalize this kind of behavior. It's absolutely disgusting. It really is. This in and of itself has killed any interest I would have had in the HBO show. I've always been an advocate for the idea of remaking the series because the movies are genuinely terrible adaptations. But Emma Watson wasn't a great Hermione either. But at least she superficially looked like the character when she was a kid. Okay, the first two movies she was fine. Okay, even in those movies, they completely lost the plot of who Hermione is, who Ron is. They completely didn't understand the nature of the characters and their appeal and their importance to the plot. They made Ron out to be a joke character in the movies, right? This is something I'm very passionate about and I've talked about a lot. The movies really did make out Hermione to be even more of a Mary Sue than she already was. But now they're trying to do this thing where they're trying to subvert this franchise that has already told its story, that's already been adapted once, and it is going to fail. Whether people watch the series or not doesn't really matter because it's inevitably going to be compared to the original books and the original films. And regardless of how well the cast does, no matter how good the material is, no matter how much content they cover, the reality is, real fans will not be able to get past the fact that Hermione isn't black. that's just the reality of the situation. Completely miscast. And yes, you absolutely do have a right to complain about this. There's nothing wrong about the fact that that Snape is miscast, that Hermione's miscast, that like they're making all these very blatantly terrible creative decisions purely to push a political agenda. This might be one of the most woke projects in Hollywood right now because, like, Harry Potter is like one of those brands that's like endured in relevancy. People still love the movies, people still love the books. It's like it hasn't really been like ruined yet in the mainstream. They haven't like really been able to go back to the source material and kind of like ruin it worse than like what the movies already did. But like, yeah, they're going to try and do that. They're gonna try and get this to happen. Gonna try and get this to take off. Gonna try and like ruin this series for everyone to try and make this political point. And my take on it is that like this isn't gonna work. Like I had subbed to HBO Max when The Last of Us came out, and look at where that is now. 50% uh, they've lost 50% of their viewer base over the course of season two. Exactly like a lot of people knew it would. That show lost a lot of relevancy even after that AstroTurf campaign of pretending like oh this is the greatest thing ever. Wheel of Time also had similar like trends of like not understanding the source material and like undermining it and like making weird race swaps and all these weird decisions. That's canceled now. Rings of Power is getting renewed. Nobody cares about that. Okay. Like, by the way, the Lord of the Rings movies are also woke. But like, my point is, going into this, like, the general public really does need to stop respecting these kind of adaptations. You need to stop like watching them. You need to stop caring about them. Like to me, they don't even fucking exist. There's absolutely nothing they can do to stop the original Harry Potter series from existing. I have all 7 books physically. They're not going to come to my house and like force me to like get rid of them because J.K. Rowling wants to like pretend Hermione is black. It's just not going to happen. And if they do try and force the issue, like Harry Potter is just going to lose its relevancy. That's just the reality of it. I think is just trying to like make something that doesn't appeal to anybody is just going to drive away even your most hardcore fans. Like you will not find a more hardcore Harry Potter fan than me, but like I don't watch the movies. I've never seen the play. I don't respect like a lot of what they've done over the past like 15 years. Like the story is over. And that's like the big thing about Harry Potter is that like it was this huge cultural phenomenon in the 2000s, right? But it's over now. The book series ended a long time ago, and this kind of like retconning of a brand isn't going to work because too many people this kind of like a revision of the original material is simply not going to work because like people are just going to move on to the next big thing or just desperately cling on to the old version. They're not people aren't going to like automatically just worship Harry Potter just because it's Harry Potter. Like I don't think Harry Potter fans are like as big of a man children as Star Wars fans have proven themselves to be. Like it's just plenty of people were willing to come out and say that like Hogwarts Legacy wasn't that great, in spite of like being this huge success. And like I do think that's going to be the same case with the HBO series. Is that like this is going to come out, it's going to have like a steady viewer base of people who want like a proper adaptation of the book series, which the movies were not, who want like a good proper like good adaptation of the book series, and it is going to not be remembered fondly. I think it's safe to say. Like, it's not something that like I want to see, I care about, and honestly, going forward, don't even want to talk about anymore. Like to me, like I'm perfectly fine with just enjoying Harry Potter for what it was. Like the original 7 book series, nothing more, nothing less. And I think people really do need to let go of this brand and its author, who has done everything possible to undermine her own brand simply to satiate her own political views. Rowling is a 50-year-old hag who really desperately needs to have sex.